Part 163. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1631. Yang Fan's judgment was correct. Yang Chen began to grow up day by day. Although he didn't have any serious illness, his physique was still worse than other children. He often had minor illnesses such as fever, which made him weaker than ordinary people. This made it even more difficult for Wu Yu to accept this fact. If all this was just a test, it would be too real. Even a simple fever was an unbearable torture for him. This physical weakness made it almost unbearable for him. Compared with before, even compared with the time in Dongyu Kingdom, the current Yang Chen is much weaker. Let Wu Yu, who was still a martial artist at the time, deal with the current Yang Chen. One can beat 100. This contrast is tantamount to torture for Wu Yu, not only physical torture, but also mental torture. He even feels that even some minor fevers and illnesses are as painful to him as the pain he experienced when he was practicing the Vajra indestructible body. Of course, the pain caused by these two things is definitely not at the same level, but Wu Yu is too weak now, which makes him feel extremely painful and turns into torment and torture for any small illness. He grows up day by day, and actually begins to adapt to the new identity of Yang Chen. He still doesn't know what is going on with him, whether he is immersed in an illusion, or really dead and reincarnated. When he was 5 years old, he felt that he had experienced a lot in Yangliu town. He almost knew every neighbor, relative, and friend of his parents' business dealings, and basically knew about the existence of Yang Chen. Some relatives and friends of Yang Fan, as well as relatives and friends of Lu Yu, would come to visit Yang Chen, but Yang Chen basically responded in silence. He can actually speak now, but he rarely speaks because he always feels that he doesn't need to communicate with these people. After all, this is just a test for him. As long as he leaves this test, these people, these things, and this Yangliu town will disappear. This is an illusion, a test. Wu Yu constantly reminds himself of this. However, although only 5 years have passed since he was born, these 5 years are almost as long as the 5,000 years he spent in cultivation. At least that's how he feels. This has led to him almost getting used to his identity of Yang Chen. 5 years have made him realize that someone is calling him when he hears the word Yang Chen, and he has gotten used to his relatively weak body, and even more used to Yang Fan and Lu Yu taking care of him. Of course, Wu Yu still has no feelings for them now. After all, he still thinks it's just an illusion. He has had an idea in his mind more than once, that is, could he have died in the tomb guarding hall, and then reincarnated and reborn in Yangliu town? But there is a fact that makes him judge that it is unlikely that he will die and be reborn. If it is the legendary reincarnation, he should not have the memory of his previous life, so now he still thinks this is a test, an illusion. What bothered him was that although he remembered many things before, including cultivation, becoming an immortal, Lupin, the demon god world, and even the Ruyijing Gubang, he could not remember a single word about the method of cultivation. He had read the 10,000-word scriptures of the Vajra indestructible body countless times, but now he could not remember even a single word. Everything seemed to be in a dream, which made him very confused. If you want to practice, you must go to the Tongtian sword sect. Wu Yu had such a goal in mind, but this goal was too far away from him now. It was even more difficult than when Wu Yu was the prince of Dongyu state to compete with Haoshan Shangxian. At the beginning, he was a prince. Although he was also a mortal, he had enough resources and a certain foundation for martial arts. But now, he was extremely weak and it was extremely difficult for him to practice martial arts, let alone cultivate. To say the simplest thing, in the current Yangliu town, with a population of tens of thousands, basically no one has ever been to Wudu. There were people who had left Yangliu town and said they were going to Wudu, but none of them came back, nor did they send a message back from Wudu. The distance between this frontier town and Wudu was too far for mortals. Wu Yu had a little impression that Yangliu town was close to the edge of Dongyu state. Even the most elite Wu state army had to travel through mountains and rivers and go through thousands of difficulties. It would take at least several months or even nearly a year to get here. Not to mention how many dangers there would be on the road, natural disasters, man-made disasters, and even countless wild beasts, which were not accessible to mortals. Many people in Yangliu town who wanted to go to Wudu died on the road. If Wu Yu wanted to go to Tongtian sword sect, he had to go to Wudu first. Otherwise, he would have no chance of reaching the Bibo Mountains where Tongtian sword sect was located. The journey was too long. During the period from when he was 5 years old, Wu Yu lived in Yangliu town as Yang Chen. Although it was plain, it could be seen that Yang Fan and Lu Yu loved him very much. It's just that he doesn't have much emotion towards the couple, so it's hard for him to get involved. This illusion is too real, it doesn't seem like an illusion, but, what if this is not an illusion, but real? What should I do? Recently, this thought kept coming up in Wu Yu's mind. If the current situation is true, and he is reborn for some unknown reason and becomes Yang Chen, what should he do? This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. The result made him a little desperate and mentally collapsed. With such a fragile mortal body, it would be difficult to even walk to Wudu, which is almost an impossible task, not to mention regaining everything he once had. Ruyi Jingbang, the inheritance of the Monkey King, now thinking about it, is too far away from him. Even the simplest martial arts are far away from him. There is only one master Yang Bai in Yangliu town, an old martial arts master. When he was born, he defeated a group of bandits on the mountain road outside the town and became the most respected person in Yangliu town. Master Yang Bai did accept many disciples, but those disciples all had certain martial arts talents, at least they were strong, not as weak as Yang Chen. Always thinking what if this is true, Wu Yu gradually began to accept it and invested in the identity of Yang Chen, mainly because even if all this is an illusion, he has no way to break free. Instead of racking his brains to think about those unrealistic things, it is better to start with what is in front of him and see if there are some places that can be broken through. Whether it is an illusion or reality, what he wants to do now is the same thing, that is, to embark on the path of cultivation. I am only 5 years old now, still too young. I can try to act when I grow up and see if I can go to Wudu. Wu Yu thought in his heart, there has never been such a day. He actually wanted time to pass faster, so that he could grow up faster. In the past, cultivation was all about racing against time, wishing that time would stop, but now, Wu Yu, on the contrary, hoped that time would go faster so that he could grow up. The despair and pain in his heart also increased with the passage of time. This kind of feeling of having ideas but not being able to try them is really too depressing, which also made Yang Chen more silent. He was unwilling to communicate with the people around him. Even Yang Fan and Lu Yu, his parents, could not understand his current mood. He could not tell others what was in his heart, otherwise he would be regarded as a madman. But Wu Yu did not realize that when he began to worry about being regarded as a madman, from this moment on, he actually began to care about the thoughts of the people around him, that is, he had begun to integrate into this world. He was more involved in the identity of Yang Chen. Everything about Yang Chen was what he experienced. If he was not Yang Chen, who was Yang Chen? After the age of 5, he finally began to grow up. Children actually grow up very fast. Every time he met Yang Fan and Lu Yu's relatives and friends, as well as some business partners, they would stare at Wu Yu in surprise and sigh, how come this child is so big? Time flies. 5 years old, 7 years old, 9 years old. Until the age of 10, others felt that time passed very quickly, and Yang Chen grew up in the blink of an eye. But in Wu Yu's view, these 10 years were simply too long to the extreme, and even made him desperate and crazy. His first thought was of course to go to Wudu, and then borrow the road to Tongtian sword sect to start practicing Taoism, but later he found that it was too difficult. He couldn't even meet the conditions for practicing martial arts, let alone practicing Taoism. His body was too weak, and practicing martial arts would cause damage to his body, not to mention practicing Taoism, which required much higher qualifications than practicing martial arts. In Dongyu Kingdom, there were at least 100,000 martial artists, but the number of those who had the qualifications to practice Taoism was no more than 1 in 10,000. Wu Yu had been thinking about how he could start practicing Taoism for many years, and finally found that it was impossible. In this life, as Yang Chen, anyone else would not be able to enter the ranks of Taoists at this starting point. At the age of 10, the taciturn Yang Chen gradually became an alien in the eyes of others. Originally, when he was a child, some people thought he was very smart, which could be reflected in some small things, which were not things that ordinary children could do, but as he got older, he became a problem child. Because he didn't like to talk and didn't make friends, other children in Yangliu town united to laugh at him. At first he didn't care much, but later, he found that these things actually made him a little bored. At this time, it basically meant that Wu Yu had already accepted the identity of Yang Chen. Of course, deep down in his heart, he still felt that this was an illusion, but now it seemed that there was no way to break it. Heaven-swallowing record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1632. This is a not too young age. 10 years old, to other people in Yangliu town, may be just a child, but to Wu Yu, it feels like it's time to take action. In the past 10 years, he has been thinking about breaking through this illusion and restoring his strength. But until now, he has not taken any action, mainly because he was too young before and couldn't take action even if he wanted to. When he was 10 years old, Wu Yu began to want to go to Wudu. To go to Tongtian sword sect, you must first go to Wudu to succeed in the end. Wu Yu wanted to try it first. So, when he just turned 10, Wu Yu proposed to Yang Fan and Lu Yu that he wanted to go to Wudu to take a look. In fact, at this time, Wu Yu already felt that he might have been reborn. The idea of whether this was an illusion or reality had been going on in his mind for 10 years. Now, the idea that this was real has occupied a large part. Of course, whether it was an illusion or reality, he couldn't continue to live in Yangliu town. He must find a way to practice Taoism and martial arts. What? Going to Wudu? How is that possible? Don't let your imagination run wild. Wudu is too far from here. You are only 10 years old. How can you possibly reach Wudu? Yang Fan was a little surprised when he heard Yang Chen say that he was going to Wudu. Lu Yu heard their conversation in the room and ran out in a hurry to persuade Wu Yu. Yes, what are you going to Wudu for? It's too far. It's almost impossible for people in Yangliu town to go to Wudu. Wu Yu shook his head. He knew that for Yang Fan and Lu Yu, as well as everyone in Yangliu town, Wudu, Tongtian sword sect, and cultivation were too far away. If he told them, they would not believe it. Instead, they would think that he was sick and was imagining things. Although the opposition of Yang Fan and Lu Yu made Wu Yu lose some support for going to Wudu, it would not change his determination. It should be noted that Wu Yu is still too weak now. It is almost impossible for him to go all the way to Wudu by his own strength. Of course, he can only rely on his own strength now. So on a clear night, he ran away from home without notifying Yang Fan and Lu Yu. He didn't think about how they would feel after they found out that he had secretly left, but resolutely moved towards Wudu. This Yangliu town is located in the north of Dongyu State. If you want to go to Wudu, just head south. Wu Yu still had some impression, so he looked at the stars in the sky, identified the direction, and headed straight south. He took some dry food and a water bottle with him and set off on the road. Originally, Wu Yu felt that as long as he was determined, he would be able to reach Wudu even if he walked for 5 or 10 years. It didn't matter if he was slow or young, As long as he didn't die, he could exercise his body. But after he set out on the road, he found that God seemed to be targeting him and against him. Less than a day after walking, the water bottle he carried with him was taken away by a giant bird. The giant bird didn't know what was going on, so it rushed down and took away his water bottle, but ignored him. After losing the kettle, it was difficult for Wu Yu to drink water. He wanted to make a water bag anywhere, but with his weak body of 10 years old, he couldn't kill any small animals to make a water bag. As for cutting trees, he couldn't do it without tools. He was still too young and had no strength. When he was in the wild, even basic survival became a problem. When he went to bed at night, he climbed up a big tree, but there was a poisonous snake on the tree. If he hadn't had sharp eyes, he would have died on the tree that night. He encountered too many accidents along the way. It was not until about 10 days later that he came to a trade road. He was already starving and cold. He hadn't eaten for almost 2 days. The dry food on him was lost when he crossed the river one day. The weather suddenly became hot, making him dizzy when walking on the road. It seems that it's still too reluctant. Wu Yu still struggled and barely walked to the trade road, because he really had no other way. If he continued in the wild, he would only starve to death. He might meet some passing merchants on the trade road. Of course, this trade route is too remote, and it is not easy to see people. Wu Yu kept moving forward step by step on the trade route, and finally saw a group of small black dots at the end of the road ahead. It looked like merchants passing by here. He finally breathed a sigh of relief and could no longer hold on, and fainted on the ground. When the caravan approached and saw him fainted on the side of the road, one of them exclaimed, "Isn't this Yang Chen, the son of Yang Fan, the cloth boss in Yangliu town? Why are you here? We are going to Yangliu town, so let's send him off." So, Wu Yu was taken by the caravan all the way back to Yangliu town. When Wu Yu woke up, 3 days had passed, and he returned to his home in Yangliu town. If you take the trade route, the merchants have carriages and there are no obstacles, so it will definitely be faster. However, the trade road did not lead directly to Wudu, so Wu Yu did not go along the trade road, as that would have wasted a lot of time. Only when he could no longer hold on did he reluctantly walk onto the trade road. When he woke up, he found that his mother Lu Yu burst into tears and hugged him. Wu Yu slowly regained some consciousness and realized how worried Yang Fan and Lu Yu were about his running away from home. They had hardly slept these days and even had a lot of white hair. Especially Lu Yu, she cried almost all night. This chapter is not finished yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. This made Wu Yu feel a little guilty. He recalled some things that happened since he was born in Yangliu town. Lu Yu took care of him in every detail, and Yang Fan treated him very well. The family of 3 was happy. If it weren't for Wu Yu's weird personality, this family would definitely live well in Yangliu town. After Wu Yu woke up, he was a little confused. Should he continue to insist and go to Wudu? Now even he himself is a little confused about the situation. If he continued to go to Wudu, with his current situation and conditions, it was too far away. You know, the largest chamber of commerce in Yangliu town only does business less than 1/10 of the distance of Wudu. It would take several years to go to Wudu. But if the story of Yang Chen in Yangliu town is true, wouldn't I have failed Yang Fan and Lu Yu by doing so? Wu Yu asked himself. Seeing Yang Fan and Lu Yu worrying about him like this, he felt bad. After all this was too real. Even if he wanted to convince himself that it was just an illusion, he couldn't do it now after 10 years. Moreover, on his way to Wudu, he felt that there was a force in the dark that was constantly obstructing him from going to Wudu, causing him to be defeated and returned after walking less than 1% of the distance. Even if he hadn't happened to encounter the passage of the Chamber of Commerce, he would not have been able to come back. Afterwards, it was heard that Yang Fan gave the caravan a large sum of money as a thank you, which was enough to show how much Yang Fan and his wife valued Yang Chen. After returning from the disaster, Wu Yu became a little more sensible. He was no longer so taciturn, but spoke a little and communicated with the people in Yangliu town. The most important thing is that Wu Yu proposed to become a disciple of Master Yang Bai and practice martial arts. Yang Fan and Lu Yu spent money to find a martial artist who was willing to teach Yang Chen. In Yangliu town, there were no more than 5 martial artists, and the strongest one was Master Yang Bai, Mr. Yang. The other 4 were all disciples of Master Yang Bai, and they were all in their 30s and 40s, which was the prime of their lives. Master Yang Bai had grown old recently and no longer accepted disciples, so Yang Fan and Lu Yu could only go to ask his 4 disciples for help. There were not many people in Yangliu town, so everyone knew each other. When the other party heard that Yang Chen wanted to practice martial arts, they did not make it difficult. They just said that it was not so easy to practice martial arts and listed a basket of conditions. Among them, Yang Chen needed to improve his physical fitness, so he needed to buy some precious medicinal materials for soaking, and martial arts also required a good instructor, which cost a lot of money. Yang Fan and Lu Yu were not stingy at all, and soon found a lot of precious medicinal materials for Wu Yu, almost spending all their savings in this half of their lives. These precious medicinal materials were boiled into medicinal soups for Wu Yu to take all day. In fact, after Wu Yu took these medicinal soups, he could clearly feel that these medicinal soups were good for him and very nourishing for his body. But after taking them for a while, he found something strange. The nutrients in these medicinal soups did not seem to be completely absorbed by his body, but quickly lost from his body. As for the reason, it is unknown. Of course, even if he only absorbed a little bit, his body was better, and he barely met the conditions for martial arts. At the age of 12, he followed Master Yang Bai's eldest disciple and began to practice martial arts. This process can be said to be extremely difficult, even more difficult than when Wu Yu was the crown prince of Wu. Every day of martial arts training, even if it was just the basics of training, was like a year for him, bringing endless pain. When Wu Yu was the crown prince before, although it was not easy to practice martial arts, it was not so difficult. Now he felt that the meridians in his body of Yang Chen were almost completely blocked, and some of the bodybuilding techniques of practicing martial arts were a huge burden for him, and his body could not bear it at all. Not long after practicing, he felt that his body had suffered a lot of damage, which seemed to be caused by excessive force during the martial arts process. There was no way around it. Wu Yu felt that if he didn't work hard, he would never be able to reach Wudu or Tongtian sword sect in this life, so he was extremely hard-working when practicing martial arts, working more than 10 times harder than other martial arts disciples. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Feng Qing Yang. Chapter 1633. Almost everyone in Yangliu town saw the efforts of Wu Yu or Yang Chen. Especially Master Yang Bai, although he is older, he has gradually heard the name Yang Chen. He practiced martial arts very hard, practicing almost day and night, and even his body was damaged, but he still persisted. Unremitting. Master Yang Bai admired this kind of spirit, but Master Yang Bai personally came to persuade Wu Yu and told him not to work too hard because his body could not persist. Wu Yu not only refused to listen, but also argued with Master Yang Bai. After all, in Wu Yu's eyes, martial arts masters like Master Yang Bai were too low-end, and he was really not qualified to teach him. It's not that he looked down on the other party, it was just that Wu Yu has his own dream, so it is impossible to listen to Master Yang Bai's words. So he continued to practice martial arts and work hard. Master Yang Bai finally sighed and ignored Wu Yu. The speed of progress is really too slow. Wu Yu felt the speed of his martial arts training, and gradually felt a sense of despair. He didn't know if it was an illusion or something, but he always felt that the more he practiced, the weaker his body became. Yang Fan and Lu Yu had even gone bankrupt and used all their property to buy him the resources he needed to practice martial arts, but after several years, he still accomplishes nothing. Do we really have to spend the rest of our lives here and never be able to practice Taoism? This result was simply unacceptable to Wu Yu. He felt that he might have made a mistake in some places, or that the level of martial arts masters in Yangliu town was too low, resulting in poor practice, which was why he was like this. But he had completely forgotten about the previous cultivation methods and could not remember any of the content, so he could not judge now. Just from the feeling, although Master Yang Bai and other martial arts masters are not high level, they have achieved some achievements at least. It is not like that they have no achievements at all, and their bodies are getting weaker and weaker. This situation lasted until Yang Chen was 20 years old. By this time, Wu Yu had been practicing martial arts for 10 years. Although he had achieved nothing, he still did not give up. But one day, he suddenly couldn't stand up. The meridians in his legs were completely blocked, and his muscles and bones were severely strained and almost completely damaged due to excessive training. It was actually difficult for him to even stand. This was an extremely serious blow to Wu Yu. He stayed in bed for the next few days and did not continue to practice. Yang Fan and Lu Yu had gray hair on their temples by this time. At this time, they were worried about him and busy with work. They kept looking for Yangliu town. The doctor came to see him. But every doctor who saw his legs shook their heads and left, saying that it was impossible to heal his legs. A bolt from the blue. Wu Yu was in a daze for a long time. He could not accept the fact that his legs were disabled and he could no longer stand up and walk. How could he go to Wudu, go to the Tongtian sword sect, and even realize his dream of cultivating Taoism? After 20 years of hardship, Wu Yu never imagined that he would end up like this. What was before him now was no longer a matter of cultivating Taoism or the Tongtian sword section. Even Wudu had become an unattainable dream. As his legs were crippled and he collapsed completely, Yang Fan and Lu Yu searched for doctors in the surrounding towns and even 2 nearby small cities to save his legs, but in the end there was nothing they could do. After 10 years of martial arts training, and now trying to treat his illness, Yang Fan and his wife spent all their money and even owed a lot of foreign debt. Wu Yu often heard that people would come outside the courtyard where they lived and shout pay back debts, but Yang Fan's cloth shop had been closed, and there was no source of income at all. The family of 3 has basically fallen into despair. In the eyes of other people in Yangliu town, Wu Yu is now a useless person and it is impossible to marry a wife. Carrying on the family line has become a luxury. In the entire Yangliu town, Yang Chen has become a joke. Many teenagers who practiced martial arts at the same time as him have now become young people, and several have become relatively powerful martial arts masters in Yangliu town. Even in Wu Yu's eyes before, this kind of existence was not even comparable to an ant, but now he is qualified to tell him, what's the point of working hard in martial arts? If you don't have talent and practice martial arts forcefully, you will end up being crippled. Various rumors against Wu Yu in Yangliu town had a great impact on him. For Yang Fan and Lu Yu, even their survival has become a problem. They can only survive hard and try their best to take care of Wu Yu. Wu Yu is also very sad about taking care of Yang Fan and his wife. If it weren't for him, Yang Fan and his wife could have lived a happy life, right? Just because he was born led to such desperate consequences. He fell on the bed, and basically only Yang Fan and Lu Yu could take care of him. Until he was 30 years old, Wu Yu still couldn't get out of bed. He even had arsenic prepared by his pillow. Once he couldn't bear the despair, he would have no choice but to commit suicide and end his life. Before, even when facing powerful opponents like Yanhuang ancient emperor, he had never felt hopeless. But now, he felt a deep despair, constantly moving in his mind towards his whole body. This kind of despair has been lingering on him for 10 years. Ever since he was disabled and bedridden, he has been suffering constant torture. He discovered that sometimes whether a person's psychology is strong or not has nothing to do with the opponent. The most important thing is his own state. When Wu Yu faced the ancient Emperor Yanhuang before, the opponent's power was almost despairing, but he also had means and hope, so he also had enough fighting spirit to defeat his opponent. This chapter is not over yet, please click the next page to continue reading. The more you have, the more confident you are in yourself. But now, he has almost nothing, his legs are crippled, and he is bedridden. In this case, even if it is just a small mortal martial artist who wants to kill him, he feels desperate and helpless. This is the contrast. Wu Yu has been bedridden for 10 years, and he has really thought too much, but it is useless for the current situation. After he fell into despair, he almost thought about ending his life at any time. But Yang Fan and his wife are still working hard to take care of him, and they have never given up. Even if the family of 3 is so difficult, they still don't blame Wu Yu at all. This is the love from blood. Wu Yu blames himself very much. They almost ruined their lives for him, and now he is 30 years old, and Yang Fan and his wife have become old, and the days to come will become more and more difficult. Wu Yu can hardly imagine how he will spend the next few days. First, when he was 35 years old, Yang Fan was also bedridden. After all, he was old and his body could not hold on. The birth, aging, illness and death of mortals were really painful, which made Wu Yu sigh, but he had no way to do anything. After Yang Fan was bedridden, only Lu Yu was left to take care of them. At this time, the rest of Yangliu town was almost isolated from them. They were also driven out of their original courtyard by the debt collectors and moved to a dilapidated thatched house in Yangliu town. Wu Yu and Yang Fan were bedridden in the thatched house together, living in despair every day. If it weren't for seeing that Lu Yu had not given up until now, Wu Yu would have been unable to bear it and committed suicide. This terrifying despair can completely penetrate the deepest part of a person's heart. Lu Yu is now gray-haired and has become an old woman, but even so, she is still taking care of Wu Yu and Yang Fan, never leaving. Desperate endurance made Wu Yu suffer every moment. Yang Fan was also in pain, but he did not have the same experience as Wu Yu before, so he did not feel unbearable about the current state. For mortals, birth, aging, illness and death are common sense. Yang Fan even thought about what he would look like when he was about to die of old age a long time ago. But Wu Yu was different. Wu Yu was an immortal before, with a long lifespan, almost as long as the heaven and earth, immortal and indestructible. He never thought that he would face such a desperate situation, so the contrast between the two made his despair and pain in his heart more than 100 times greater than Yang Fan. Finally, after a cold, Yang Fan died of a serious illness, and Lu Yu died soon after. At this time, Yang Chen was already 40 years old, and he was the only one left alive in the world. Since he was bedridden at the age of 20, he has been in despair and pain almost every moment. He has been thinking about committing suicide for a long time. It was only after seeing how hard Yang Fan and his wife worked that he finally endured it. This is the result of his tenacious character. If other gods had experienced all this, they would have probably given up and committed suicide halfway through. And now, Wu Yu feels that he is finally free. This life is too ridiculous. From birth to now, he has been looked down upon by others in Yangliu town. No matter how hard he tries, he cannot succeed in martial arts. It seems that there is a curse in the dark, cursing Wu Yu that this life of Yang Chen will definitely end up in such a miserable state. Even if he did not insist on practicing martial arts at that time, his body would become weaker and weaker as he grew up, and he would eventually end up like this. Wu Yu lay down on the thatched mat, looking at the moonlight coming in through the gaps in the thatched wall, and suddenly an indescribable fighting spirit emerged in his heart. Everything in this life is so sad and ridiculous. If this is a test, it is too real. But it is precisely because of the reality that people fall into real despair. If this is an illusion, then this may be the ultimate purpose of the test of the Tomb Guardian Hall, to make those who fall into it feel complete despair. Whether it is an illusion or not, how can this life be spent like this? Wu Yu felt extremely unwilling in his heart. Suicide is completely a manifestation of weakness. He now feels that even if he dies, he must die on the road to his dream. Before, Yang Fan and his wife were still there, and he couldn't bear to leave again. Now he has no worries. The dream he had when he was 10 years old must not be given up. He struggled to get up from the thatched bed and crawled out of the thatched house with difficulty. The moonlight shone on his pale face due to long-term illness, reflecting the firm determination in his eyes. Heaven-swallowing record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1634. Wrapped in the moonlight, Wu Yu, now the body of Yang Chen, crawled out of the last thatched house and lay on the only mule left in the house with difficulty. This mule was the last legacy left to him by Yang Fan and Lu Yu. The three of them were able to survive until now, and later they basically relied on this mule. Lu Yu went out to dig wild vegetables and the like, all relying on this mule. This was also the only asset left after their family fell into ruin. Now Wu Yu lay on the mule, driving the mule to gradually leave Yangliu town, the place where he had stayed for a full 40 years. If it were him in the past, he might not think that 40 years was anything. He could have retreated for thousands of years casually, and 40 years was just a blink of an eye. But in these 40 years, he experienced another life, which had its ups and downs. He was lucky to have Yang Fan and Lu Yu, who were very good parents to him, and he was also desperate to have an extremely weak body, which could not even practice martial arts. Even if I die, I will die on the way to Wudu. Wu Yu was determined. At this time, although he was very old and weak, he burst out with more powerful strength than before. In fact, if it weren't for Yang Fan and Lu Yu, he might have left home a long time ago and went to Wudu no matter what, but the result would not be any different. Wu Yu's character is absolutely tenacious. With the conditions of his life, being able to reach Wudu is already the final goal. He also recognizes the reality that it is impossible for him to practice Taoism and go to Tongtian sword sect in this life. Occasionally, he thought of some things about Tongtian sword sect and Wudu, as well as his past experiences, which drove and whipped him to move forward. With a mule, he moved along the pipeline all the way. Although the speed was very slow, he was approaching the direction of Wudu. When Wu Yu was hungry, he dug some wild vegetables along the way. As long as the mule ate it, he would also eat it, so that it could be guaranteed that there was no poison. In this way, the problem of starvation was basically solved, because there were too many wild vegetables on the road. When he was 10 years old, Wu Yu had not thought of this method, and the route he took was not right, which resulted in him not being able to walk far. But this time, he took a longer step than before. Although it was more difficult than when he was 10 years old, he at least persisted and saw hope. His body gradually began to have strength. Although he still couldn't get down and walk, he didn't need to walk with the mule. At least, he wanted to see what Wudu looked like in his life. Along the way, he passed some villages and towns, and he would drive the mule to beg from house to house. For him, this would allow him to get more food, and he didn't need to go out to search in the wild often and spend time. As long as he could hold on to the next town or village, there would basically be no problem of lack of food. Because he was so pitiful now, some villagers were still very kind and willing to help him. Even when he was on the business road, he could meet some caravans who were willing to take him for a ride, give him some food and drink, so that he could go further and help him in some difficult times. In this way, Wu Yu actually set off miraculously. He actually had deep despair in his mind, but in this despair, there was a state of mind of resistance and tenacity. The conditions in this life were really too bad, but as long as he saw Wudu, he could be regarded as having realized his dream when he was 10 years old. Even if there was no future, he had fought against fate and was enough to rest in peace. As for what would happen after death, Wu Yu didn't think about it at all, because it was meaningless for him to think about it now. No matter what would happen after death, he couldn't change it, so it would be better to get closer to his dream before he died. Day after day, Wu Yu went south on the business road. He asked some merchants along the way and learned that he was indeed getting closer and closer to Wudu. Although many caravans still did not do business in Wudu because the distance was too far and the transportation cost was too high, Wu Yu knew that he had taken the first step now, and it would be much easier next time. With that mule, nothing could stop Wu Yu from going to Wudu. Once, he even encountered a group of robbers along the way. The robbers had no interest in him. After all, he had no money and nothing valuable. He was much poorer than the robbers, and the robbers didn't bother to pay attention to him. However, after they let Wu Yu go, Wu Yu met a caravan passing through the forest on the next road, so he reminded the caravan. The caravan didn't believe that there were robbers ahead, but after sending someone over, the man didn't come back within the specified time, so the caravan knew that something was really wrong. They chose to take a detour, and by the way, in order to thank Wu Yu, after listening to Wu Yu's current dream, they actually prepared a carriage for him and an old driver, and asked the old driver to take Wu Yu to Wudu. This caravan had some business dealings with Wudu, so they were familiar with Wudu's route. Wu Yu finally got off the mule that was about to die of old age and got on the caravan's carriage. Now he had nothing but his dreams, and he was not afraid that the caravan had any ill intentions towards him. If the other party wanted to send him off, of course he would be willing. After getting on the carriage, life became a little more comfortable, but Wu Yu could still feel that life was gradually slipping away from him. This life is too short, and there is nothing shocking. The most he did was become a joke in Yangliu town, dragging down Yang Fan and Lu Yu and his wife. Now, he is about to be freed. The old caravan driver drove the carriage and talked to Wu Yu from time to time. When he heard that he was starting from Yangliu town on the border, the old driver respected him. Yangliu town, that's not close. We don't even go that far for business. It takes at least 3 months for our carriage to get there. You walk so far with a mule that is almost dying. The key is that Wu Yu can't walk with his legs and is basically disabled, so the old driver was amazed at the journey of thousands of miles, and even couldn't believe it. He had a sincere admiration for Wu Yu, and Wu Yu also reminded them of the caravan, so that they were not caught by robbers, which made him have some good feelings towards Wu Yu. The old driver drove the carriage and took Wu Yu closer and closer to Wudu. I don't know how long it has been. Wu Yu only knows that one day after another has passed. It has been almost a year since he left Yangliu town. On this day, he finally saw a magnificent city at the end of the horizon. Compared with the Tianting fairy city he had seen before, this city is not impressive at all. Even compared with the Bibo Mountains of Tongtian Sword Sect, Shushan, and Yanhuang Emperor City, it is not even 1/10,000th of it. But now that Wu Yu saw the city, he was finally excited and tears welled up in his eyes. This is Wudu. He finally saw Wudu. His dream when he was 10 years old finally came true. He experienced decades of despair and finally saw the place that had haunted him for so long. Wudu appeared on the horizon. And Wu Yu's vitality in this life was completely exhausted at this moment. Originally, he could still hold on, relying on his thoughts to support him. Now he also knows that even if he arrives in Wudu, he can't continue to do anything. Being able to see Wudu once is already the greatest struggle against fate. In the eyes of the old driver, who was also somewhat moved, Wu Yu closed his eyes. He, Yang Chen, could finally rest in peace in this life. This world seemed to have become a little blurry from the moment he saw Wu Du, but Wu Yu could not see it. Yang Chen's rest was not Wu Yu's death. As Wu Yu opened his eyes again, he found himself in a closed passage. Behind him was the second room of the tomb guarding hall. The two words resistance had appeared on the door of this room. This was the between resistance, just like the between transcendence in the previous mirror space. It was indeed a test for intruders. But Wu Yu was still trembling until now. Yang Chen's life experience was really despairing. You finally woke up, Yezixi cried with joy in the fusion tower. She thought Wu Yu would never wake up again. Really, old Wu, you have been unconscious since you entered the room, and now you finally wake up. What have you experienced? Nanshan Wanjiao was also like a curious baby, asking Wu Yu non-stop. Wu Yu gradually recovered from Yang Chen's life experience, became somewhat sober, and then smiled. This smile contained some detachment and freedom after fighting against fate. It seems that this room is for people to fight against fate, surpass fate, and realize their dreams. No wonder no matter how hard I try, I can't succeed in martial arts. My body is getting weaker and weaker, and the situation is always getting worse and worse. All of this seems to be the obstacle set by this room for me. Wu Yu explained the matter to everyone in the fusion tower, and then he was a little scared. He now understands that everything that Yang Chen encountered was an obstacle brought to him by this test, including the various setbacks he encountered when he went out at the age of 10, which were also obstacles brought to him by the test. If he died in Yangliu town, he might never be able to return to Wu Yu's body. Or if he failed to fight successfully in the end and met Wu Du, Wu Yu might not be able to come out of this room. In any case, Wu Yu has succeeded now. And he has experienced a completely different life, which is equivalent to a new understanding of time and life. He had already experienced the despair of despair, so what was there for him to fear now? After hearing what Wu Yu said, Nanshan Wanjiao, Yezixi, and Wu Jun were all silent. The illusion in this room was so terrifying that it made people live such a desperate life. If they were to go in, they might not be able to pass the test. This was a great test of willpower, and the requirements were too high. It was difficult for ordinary gods to persist, and they had to fight against fate and realize their dreams. Anyway, it's time to go to the last room now. Wu Yu came to the end of the passage, in front of the last room, and his expression became a little complicated. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1635. Standing at the door of the last third room, Wu Yu didn't know what was inside. Based on the tests in the first two rooms, the third room might also be a terrible test. In the first transcendence room, there is your mirror image, old Wu, and you have to surpass it to get out. The second struggle room is even more powerful, giving you all kinds of desperate conditions and asking you to complete impossible things. What kind of test will this third room be? Nanshan Wanjiao said curiously. Brother Wu Yu, why don't we not go in? We have not gotten any good things since we came to the Eternal Emperor's burial. What if there is no treasure in this place at all? Yezixi wanted to back out. After entering the Eternal Emperor's burial, she really experienced too much despair. When she couldn't get out of the secret room for 50,000 years, her mentality was a little broken. Later, seeing Wu Yu undergo so many tests in succession, she was even more uneasy. Wu Yu is now standing at the deepest part of the entire closed passage. If he retreats, he can see the lifelike statues of thousands of demon gods in the passage. Now he faces a choice: should he enter the third room? If this third room is also a test, it is definitely the most difficult one. Wu Yu, you need to make your own judgment. We can't help you, Wu Jun said with a serious expression. Even though Wu Jun has lived for so many years, he has never seen such a difficult and desperate test as the Eternal Emperor burial. These tests are completely aimed at people's psychology. If the mind is not strong enough, it would have been defeated long ago and it would be impossible to continue. Therefore, Wu Jun thinks that Wu Yu may be a little hesitant. If he can't persist in this last room, it is very likely that the whole army will be wiped out and all the previous efforts will be wasted. However, Wu Yu shook his head. He basically didn't hesitate about this last room. He must enter. He has worked hard until now, and he has actually gained what he deserves. On the one hand, he surpassed himself in the process of surpassing, making his means of displaying magical powers and heavenly rules tend to be perfect. On the other hand, he tempered his will in the process of fighting. In terms of willpower, he is more than 10 times stronger than before. Thinking about Yang Chen's desperate life, Wu Yu still trembles in his heart and is somewhat afraid. Now it seems that the training of the desperate situation in just 40 years has raised his willpower to a new level. The last room is likely to be a test, so it must be the most difficult one. If he passes it, it will also be the one that will give him the greatest gain. Wu Yu thought about it and said, no matter what the test in this last room is, I will go in. This eternal emperor burial contains a huge secret. The destruction of the demon god realm must be figured out. He vaguely felt that all this was related to the inheritance of the Monkey King on his body. The destruction of the demon god realm was not mentioned by anyone in the heavenly court, but the Monkey King pointed it out as soon as he appeared, and said some meaningless words, which made Wu Yu more concerned about the destruction of the demon god realm. It is very likely that the secret is in the third room. Then be prepared. Maybe there will be an opponent of the eternal demon emperor realm, just like before. Wu Jun nodded. Since Wu Yu had made the decision, he would not stop him. Then go in. Wu Yu was ready to face the most difficult test, and then he walked to the third room at the end of the passage with a solemn expression and put the 2 bronze pendants into it. Then, the bronze door slowly opened. The despair he had when he was Yang Chen in the previous room still lingered in Wu Yu's mind, and it would not go away in a short time. Wu Yu looked at the darkness behind the bronze door, and finally mustered up the courage to walk into the door. As he stepped into the room, the scene in front of him made him slightly stunned, and then the bronze door behind him disappeared directly. How could it be like this? What appeared in front of Wu Yu was actually an ordinary cabin. He pushed open the door and came in, and directly entered the cabin, but did not see any place to go out. Of course, this is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that Wu Yu found this cabin very familiar. This is exactly the cabin where he and the old man's son Wuodao lived together when they were in Tongtian sword section. The arrangement of things in this cabin, the position of tables, chairs, and beds are exactly the same as at that time. Son Wuodao. All this was like a thunderbolt, making Wu Yu a little difficult to understand. Could it be that Son Wuodao has something to do with this place? Or is this another new test for his psychology? However, when he stepped into this cabin, he did not see Son Wuodao. Obviously, even if this is a test, it will not be so simple. There is a monkey with a strange shape, jumping up and down in this cabin. This monkey is a gray little macaque. If it were not for the 3 ears on each side, it would be no different from an ordinary little monkey. This little macaque with 6 ears immediately called out happily when he saw Wu Yu stepping in, obviously showing extreme excitement about the arrival of someone. Perhaps the little macaque has been trapped in this wooden house for too long. The extremely boring time makes the little macaque feel bored. It is natural that someone came to see him. At the beginning, the little macaque was excited to see Wu Yu come in, but he was still a little cautious and timid. This chapter is not over yet, please click the next page to continue reading. But soon, the little macaque became closer to Wu Yu, jumping up and down beside him, chirping non-stop. It can be seen from the eyes of the little macaque that he is a little curious about Wu Yu, but soon he becomes a little intimate. This little monkey should not be very conscious, right? Wu Jun was in the floating life tower and could also see the situation outside. At this time, he analyzed it and felt that this gray little macaque was like an ordinary wild monkey, and it seemed that he had not yet opened his spiritual intelligence. But everyone knows that the one who can appear in the final room of the Eternal Emperor's burial is definitely not a simple existence. When Wu Yu got the news from Wu Jun, he was sure that this was not an illusion, because the illusion about Yang Chen affected him and made it impossible for him to communicate with Wu Jun and the others. Let me see. Wu Yu got close to the little macaque for a while, and then looked at him with his fiery eyes and golden pupils, and found that the little macaque was indeed not simple. There were countless complex magic arrays on his body. These magic arrays together formed a terrifying ban, which sealed the little macaque's ability. Wu Yu could not understand these ban arrays at all. Not to mention removing these bans, even figuring out their effects was an impossible task for him now. Could it be related to the Monkey King? Wu Yu quickly connected everything in his mind, such as Sun Wuodao, Ruyi Jingbang, and thought of a possibility. Could this little macaque be the Monkey King, but was just sealed here? But this guess was not right. When the Monkey King appeared in the fairy world before, he was obviously conscious, and there was no similarity with the state of this little macaque. So what kind of existence is this little macaque? Wu Yu began to observe some details in the cabin. For the time being, he didn't know how to leave the cabin, so he calmed down, but he soon gave up because the furnishings of the cabin were too simple, exactly the same as Sun Wuodao's cabin in Tongtian Sword Sect before, and there was no secret hidden at all. Such a powerful magic array was used to seal this little macaque. This little guy must have been a very remarkable existence in the past, Wu Yu thought to himself, and then began to play with the little monkey. Perhaps because Wu Yu got the message from the Monkey King and had the blood of the golden ape in his body, it was easier to get close to this grey little macaque. Soon Wu Yu and the little macaque became quite intimate. There were 3 ears on one side, a total of 6 ears, which made the little macaque look a little weird, but after watching it for a long time, I found it was quite cute. After becoming intimate with the little monkey, the little macaque jumped up and down in the cabin, suddenly took out something and came to Wu Yu, and handed it to Wu Yu. Wu Yu was a little surprised. He took the thing and found it was a fist-sized transparent crystal ball. Look, there is a figure flashing in this crystal ball. Wu Jun, Nanshan Wanjiao, and Yezixi in the Fusion Tower soon discovered the situation in the crystal ball. As for the Eternal World Tree, although Wu Yu protected it, he locked it in a closed space in the Fusion Tower so that it could not see the situation outside. Of course, the Eternal World Tree is probably still in fear, afraid that it will die in this Eternal Emperor burial. With the reminder of Wu Jun and others, Wu Yu also began to observe the crystal ball carefully. It seems that an unprecedented battle is taking place in this crystal ball. No, this should be the impact of a battle that has happened before, which is recorded and saved in the crystal ball. Wu Yu soon discovered this. In the crystal ball, the battle was earth-shattering, countless demon gods were crying and fleeing, the void was shattered, the sky collapsed, and the earth was shattered. The doomsday-like horror scene was perfectly reproduced in the crystal ball. Could this be the legendary war that destroyed the demon god realm? Wu Yu immediately focused his attention and completely immersed himself in the scene in the crystal ball. He found that when he immersed himself in it, the fist-sized crystal ball seemed to contain an extremely vast space. In this vast world, an extremely tragic battle was taking place. From some details in this world, Wu Yu discovered that this was the demon god realm. The battle took place in the demon god realm, and there were many demon gods in the realm of the Eternal Emperor Demon, each of whom used terrifying means in this world. This is the war. Who destroyed the demon god realm? Wu Yu began to concentrate and looked at the shadow in the void above the sky. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1636. At first, the scene in the crystal ball was a bit blurry. Wu Yu and his companions could only see that in the demon god world, a large group of immortal emperor demons were fighting fiercely with the phantom in the void. As for the phantom fighting with the demon gods, it was not clear who it was for the time being. Since he couldn't see it clearly, Wu Yu didn't look at it for the time being. He first observed the demon gods. Basically, they were all immortal emperor demons, and some of them were people Wu Yu had seen before. For example, the previous world-destroying infant demon had 9 huge heads, dancing violently in the void, and the terrifying power even completely exploded the void. This was the first time Wu Yu saw an immortal emperor demon-level existence fighting with all his strength. The terrifying aftermath of the battle, with Wu Yu's current strength, would be instantly wiped out once he was involved. However, even as strong as the world-destroying infant demon, it was hit by attacks from several directions in this battle. The terrifying power completely tore its body apart. The world-destroying infant demon, which was left with only 9 heads, quickly retreated away from the battlefield and hid in a remote place. But soon, a strong force landed in that remote place, blasting the void into pieces. As for the remaining 9 heads of the world-destroying infant demon, they were trapped in the void. They should have died of exhaustion. A wisp of residual soul left the void and came out, and saw the 9 infants. This is what happened later. In the crystal ball, Wu Yu only saw the body of the world-destroying infant demon being blasted into pieces. After the 9 heads hid, their attention was attracted to the battlefields in other places. The Black Sea Emperor, Wu Yu had obtained its tentacles in the Black Sea before. Now the Black Sea Emperor in the crystal ball is a terrifying giant octopus, with thousands of tentacles with dense suction cups waving in the sky, and the power exploded in the surrounding void. But in the end, the Black Sea Emperor was also bombarded by countless forces, and it seemed that there were even 2 forces of different natures, which completely tore his body apart. This was a war that affected the entire demon god realm, and all the immortal emperors and demons in the demon god realm could not stay out of it. The battlefield almost encompassed the entire demon god world. The demon gods who had not reached the realm of the eternal demon emperor had already been bleeding like a river, and all of them were killed or wounded. The entire demon god world was broken. Those demon gods who had not reached the realm of the eternal demon emperor were completely cannon fodder in this war. They had no effect at all. They could only flee and cry to the sky. There were tragic scenes of wives and children being separated everywhere. The entire demon god world was like a purgatory on earth. Wu Yu stared at the crystal ball and saw a phoenix demon emperor burning with black flames. He was hit by several golden lights and his whole body was destroyed into black fire fragments. Finally, he fell completely in the void. And the stone emperor of the sun that penetrated the sun and the sky was a terrifyingly thick stone pillar. It constantly burst out rocks to bombard the void. The whole body swept through the void and even swept out ripples in the void. These ripples were void attacks with infinite power. Wu Yu felt that even if he had 1,000,000 clones, the void ripples swept out by the sun-piercing stone emperor could defeat all of his 1,000,000 clones. Emperor Zhongshan was the main body transformed into the Zhongshan Shirjitu. Countless mountains, rivers, and sea waves roared out from his main body, all of which were the most violent power of heaven and earth in the world. That power almost enveloped the void, but was eventually hit by a gourd falling from the sky in the middle. The entire Zhongshan Shirjitu was pierced by the thunder in the gourd and was seriously injured instantly. The gourd exuded a fairy spirit, and the aura on it seemed a little familiar to Wu Yu. Wu Jun was even more so. He widened his eyes. Isn't that gourd, the mysterious thunder gourd? With the appearance of the mysterious thunder gourd, the phantom that was fighting against the eternal emperor demons gradually became clearer. That's the immortal emperor from the heaven. Wu Yu, Wu Jun, Nanshan Wanjiao, Yezixi and others were all shocked as they watched the scene gradually become clear in the crystal ball. Because the immortal emperors from the heaven appeared in front of them, destroying the demon world and killing the immortal emperor demons one after another. For example, the one who just threw down the black thunder gourd and pierced the body of Emperor Zhongshan with the terrifying thunder in the gourd, was one of the most powerful figures in the heaven, Queen Mother, also known as Queen Mother of the West, whose full name is Zhuling Tai Miao Gishan Muo. The one in her hand was the black thunder gourd, which controlled the heavenly black thunder and was an extremely terrifying epic artifact-level magic weapon. Although the shadows of the group of immortal emperors were still a little blurry, Wu Yu and others still saw their identities. Especially Wu Jun, who had been in the heaven for too long, and he had basically seen all these legendary figures. Not far from the Queen Mother of the West, who was emitting golden light, was a super emperor immortal with an emperor's aura. That was the rumored Central Jade Emperor. In this battle, the Central Jade Emperor did not make many moves, but every time he made a move, he could quickly kill an immortal emperor demon. When he made a move, the Jade Emperor's eyes were cold and indifferent. The immortal aura around him could not cover up the murderous aura on him. It was simply terrifying. It was hard to imagine how the immortal emperors of the heavens could kill the many demon gods in the demon god world. Among them was a figure that Wu Yu had seen with his own eyes. He was Dongfang Chang'an Saint Emperor, who was in charge of Chang'an Heaven in the 8,000 Heavenly Palace. This Dongfang Chang'an Saint Emperor was the immortal who opened the Taixu Immortal Road, and he was also fighting now. Appearing in the middle, the seemingly inviolable giant immortal body exuded the aura of a powerful immortal spirit. With a wave of his hand, he shot down several immortal emperor demons with a wave of his hand. His combat power was terrifying. But what is more conspicuous on the battlefield are three super powerful emperors who have been famous for who knows how long. They are Yuanqi Tianzun, Lingbao Tianzun, and Taizhang Daijun. These three people are the three treasures of the three pure realms and three realms of the great Luo of nothingness. They are the mainstays among the immortal emperors and immortals in the heaven. Wu Yu didn't recognize them at first, but with Wu Jun explaining, he was able to distinguish them quickly. Reveal the specific identity of each person on the other side. Now Wu Jun can hardly believe it. You must know that these legendary emperors and immortals are the mainstays of heaven. It is extremely difficult to meet them in ordinary times. They only come out and walk once every tens of thousands of years. Now they have gathered together to destroy the entire demon world. This simply made his mentality collapse. You have to know that there are so many demon gods and creatures in the demon god world. How much evil have they done to destroy this demon god world? It is hard to imagine that this thing was actually done by the gods in heaven. This also made Wu Jun not want to believe the scene in the crystal ball. He felt that the scene in the crystal ball might be an illusion and not the reality. Wu Yu looked at the battlefield in the crystal ball with shock. As the battle continued, the immortal emperor demons continued to fall one after another. Among the immortals in heaven, the northern Arctic Zhongtianzaiwei Emperor and the southern Antarctic Immortal Emperor appeared one after another. As long as Wu Jun saw each other, it was pointed out by Wu Yu. The main reason is that he has stayed in heaven much longer than Wu Yu, and even if he has not seen many immortal emperors with his own eyes, he has already heard about them. The Eastern Emperor King Hua, the Tai saves the suffering Heavenly Lord, and the Western Emperor Taiji and other immortal emperors also kept appearing from the void, killing the immortal imperial demons one after another. Especially the Western Taiki Emperor, who is also known as the Emperor Gushan Shangwu. His 5 Qi gods of war are brave and good at fighting. They are constantly fighting left and right on the battlefield. Countless people the demon god was killed by their joint efforts. Wu Jun also introduced the 5 gods of war to everyone, which are the god of war in the sky, the god of earth, the god of war, the god of Arctic war and the god of Antarctic war, all 5 of which have been famous for a long time. The Super Emperor Immortal has super terrifying combat power. Wu Yu saw with his own eyes that these 5 war gods united to trap a unicorn immortal Emperor Immortal in the center, and then tore the unicorn immortal Emperor Immortal's body apart forcefully, and turned into a warrior in the void. After breaking the fragments, the golden blood in the body of the immortal unicorn immortal emperor suddenly covered the entire void and sky, and poured down like raindrops towards the demon god realm. This cruel scene is simply unbelievable. It is hard to imagine that it was done by the gods in heaven. Among these immortals, in addition to the 3 pure Taoist masters, there are also the titles of 4 imperial gods, namely the Arctic Ziwei Emperor, the Antarctic Changsheng Emperor, the Goshen Shanggong Emperor, and the Chengtian Imitation Earth Emperor. In addition to these, there are also the 3 islands and 10 continents immortal Donghua Emperor, the North Arctic Xianling Dumuyuanjun, the Central Huangji Huangjiao Immortal, etc. This situation is wrong. The more Wu Jun looked at it, the more he couldn't believe the scene in the middle of the crystal ball. He kept shaking his head and thinking, logically speaking, the difference in strength between the demon god realm and heavenly court cannot be so big. Although the overall strength of heavenly court is strong, the demon god realm is also weak. That's right, it's impossible for all the immortal emperor demons to be destroyed so completely. You mean, the situation in this crystal ball is fake and it was not done by people from heaven? Yezixi was a little moved after hearing this. If the situation in this crystal ball is fake, then who made this crystal ball? What is its purpose? Look over there, Nanshan Wanjiao exclaimed at this time and pointed in a direction inside the crystal ball. At this time, everyone looked in that direction and suddenly saw a horrifying scene. No wonder the entire demon god realm was so defeated. It turned out that the scene they just saw was just a battlefield in one direction. On the other battlefield in the entire demon god realm, a burst of howling ghosts and wolf howls soon came. Along with a burst of dark ghost mist, almost half of the space of the demon god realm was covered by endless black mist. In this black mist, countless immortal emperor demons continued to fall, and those who killed them were countless ghosts and gods from hell. Emperor Demon. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1637. Heaven and Hell, both sides actually unite to attack the demon god realm, which is a huge disaster for the demon god realm. Compared with the methods of the emperors and immortals in heaven, the ghosts and gods in hell are even more cruel. Basically, none of the immortal emperors and demons killed in the black mist of hell can leave their whole bodies intact. Their methods are extremely cruel. It's so bloody, it's as if you can smell the smell of blood all over the sky. The first person who appeared in front of Wu Yu was the northern Yin Fengdu Emperor. This is the god of death in hell and the leader of the underworld. His methods are extremely cruel, and his whole body is covered with black mist. Wu Yu and Wu Jun are useless. It took a lot of effort to recognize his identity. Wherever the great emperor of Bian Fengdu went, countless black mist shrouded, and as the immortal emperor demons were brutally killed one after another, blood flew and scattered throughout the demon and god world. The countless blood almost gathered into a vast ocean. In the void a sea of blood formed in it. Immediately afterwards, Cai Yulei and Shen Tu, the eastern ghost emperors, were in charge of the Peach Stop Mountain and Ghost Pass in the 10,000 layers of hell. They were riding on black skeleton war horses, with strong yin energy emanating from their bodies. Wherever they went, they were shrouded in black smoke. When the eternal demon emperor was nearby, his form began to wither. The vitality of his body was continuously plundered, absorbed, and devoured, and turned into a part of the Eastern Ghost Emperor's body. Following the Eastern Ghost Emperor, there are the Western Ghost Emperors Zhao Wenhe and Wang Zhenren, who govern Jizhong Mountain. There are the Northern Ghost Emperors Zhonghong and Yang Yun, who govern Lufeng Mountain, and the Southern Ghost Emperor Du Ziren, who governs Luofu Mountain. The Central Ghost Emperors Zhou Qi and Zhikang governed Beidou Mountain. These ghost emperors gathered together and attacked the world of demons and gods from another direction with the immortal emperors and immortals of heaven, causing endless killings. However, among the ghosts and gods from hell, these ghost emperors were not too conspicuous. What was even more terrifying was that next, Wu Yu and others could see 6 groups of terrifying black smoke appearing in the black fog, rolling in as fast as the wind, and penetrated deep into the camp of the immortal Emperor Demon. Wu Yu saw the nine-headed flaming lion, the nine-fire emperor, the eternal Emperor Demon he had seen on the corridor before. It was enveloped by 6 balls of black smoke at once. When it came out, there was only the skeleton. This just happened in an instant. The 9 heads on the 9 Fire Emperor's skeleton were all covered with some black energy, and all their flesh and blood were swallowed up. Those 6 groups of terrifying black smoke are the famous 6 heavens of Lufeng in hell, or the 6 heavens of ghosts and gods. They are Zhou in Heavenly Palace, Taisha Liangshi Zone Heavenly Palace, Mingchen Na Ifa Wuchen Heavenly Palace, Tianzhao Xin Qi Heavenly Palace, Zhongling Cafe Heavenly Palace, and Gansi Lian Wanzhou Heavenly Palace. These 6 days of Luo and Feng have not been separated. Instead, they gathered together and kept flying and wandering in the battlefield in the form of 6 black smoke. One after another, the immortal Emperor Demons became the dead souls under their hands, and were devoured completely, leaving no flesh and blood left. If it were just a simple fight against either heaven or hell, there would still be a lot of immortal Emperor Demons in the demon god realm, so they would not be at such a disadvantage. But now that the demon god realm is facing attacks from 2 sides, there is simply no way to fight back. On average, an immortal Emperor Demon in the demon god realm has to face more than 2 opponents, and it is impossible to defeat each other. What's more, the opponent seems to have arrived without any warning. The Heavenly Emperor Immortal and the Hell Emperor Demon are so fierce that they attack from 2 directions, leaving many immortal Emperor Demons unable to react at all. The strongest people in hell should be in that direction. Wu Jun pointed in the direction of a black smoke. In that place, countless powerful immortal emperors and demons were rising and falling in the black smoke. The power of ghosts and gods rolling in almost drowned the void of the demon and god world. The most important ones are the 10 palaces of hell, including King Guang of Qin, King Chujiang, Emperor Song, King Wuguan, King Yama, King Pingping, King Taishan, King Sidi, King Biancheng, King Xuanhuan, and the 10 palaces. The King of Hell, even in this top-notch battle to destroy the world of demons and gods, is fully capable of standing alone. Each of the 10 palaces of hell can easily deal with several eternal emperor demons. Only the top existences among the eternal emperor demons can possibly compete with these 10 palaces of hell. In addition to the 10 palaces of hell, there are many terrifying ghosts and gods in hell. The eternal emperor demon is massacring the entire demon and god realm, and even those demon gods who have not reached the realm of the eternal demon emperor are not being spared. In the entire world of demons and gods, all life was devastated and turned into a hell on earth, with blood flowing into rivers and seas, and cries reaching the sky. That's the chief judge of hell, Mr. Kuifu, right? Nanshan Wanjiao looked in one direction and saw a ghost, god, emperor, and demon holding a book. The book in his hand seemed to be the famous Book of Life and Death. Kui Fajun's name is Kuiju, and he is the head of the 4 great judges of hell, known as the Yin Law Division. In addition to Kui Fajun, the 4 great judges include the Division of Rewards for Good, Division of Punishment of Evil, and Division of Inspection. At that time, they all appeared in the demon god realm and surrounded and killed many immortal emperor demons in the demon god realm. Compared with the previous 10 palaces of hell, the strength of these 4 judges was comparable. Although the number of immortal emperor demons killed was smaller, they also caused heavy damage to the immortal emperor demon forces in the demon god realm. Wherever they went, there was no one who could stand up to them. The immortal emperor demons of the demon god realm were almost completely defeated. Black and white impermanence, bullhead, and horseface, god Mengpo. Many terrifying ghosts, gods, emperors, and demons all appeared in the world of demons and gods. In the crystal ball, a terrifying massacre unfolded under the joint efforts of the ghosts and gods from heaven and hell. The heaven court has the central Jade Emperor as the leader, while the hell has no unified ruler, but the strongest immortal emperors and demons have also established a strict order. Now that they are at war with the demon world, they have shown their terrifying side. The scene in the crystal ball constantly stimulated Wu Jun, and other viewers, making them constantly shocked, but they could not understand it at all. Dongfang Kongjin Saint Emperor, this immortal Emperor Wu Yu had seen before, although he only watched from afar, but he could still see that this guy was not such a vicious and cruel person. In this crystal ball, Dongfang Kongjin Saint Emperor killed the immortal Emperor demons one after another with various cruel means. Even Wu Jun, who has lived for so many years, couldn't figure out whether the situation in the crystal ball was what really happened. Something is wrong, something is wrong. Although I haven't seen some of the emperors, they are not so cruel and murderous according to the rumors, let alone such a big thing as destroying the demon god world. Wu Jun has always doubted the truth of the scene in the crystal ball. He couldn't believe that those immortal emperors in the heaven would do such a cruel act against the way of heaven. I also find it a bit incredible. Not only Wu Jun, but even Wu Yu now finds it a bit incredible. Of course, Wu Yu's relationship with the emperors in the heaven is not that good. There are even many emperors in the heaven who want to kill him. But this does not affect Wu Yu's judgment of the character of those emperors. In general, he does not think that the emperors in the heaven will do such a cruel thing. Even if they are the emperors who have a grudge against him, Wu Yu does not want to speculate them with malice. But if it is not true, is the scene in the crystal ball all fake? The destruction of the demon god world, such a terrible thing happened, who can have a way to record all of this? Wu Yu and his group kept guessing and discussing, but they still didn't know whether the scene in the crystal ball was true or false. Wu Jun was the one who didn't believe it the most, because he had been in the heavenly court the longest. Nanshan Wanjiao was a little treacherous, and he expressed his thoughts. Maybe the Jade Emperor, the Eastern Kongjin Saint Emperor, and others were all pretending, and they were so vicious and cruel behind the scenes. After all, old Wu, you also said that cultivation is plundering. With their high status and strong cultivation, if they say that they have never done anything to harm others and benefit themselves during their cultivation, I will be the first one to disbelieve it. There is some truth in what he said. The path of cultivation itself is against the will of heaven. If you want to reach the highest point, you must plunder resources. The plunder of resources is mostly solved by violence. It can be imagined that in the era when these heavenly court emperors and immortals are rising, how many talented immortals with the same talent as them have fallen in the competition. The one who survives to the end is the winner. Even if the heavenly court now has a certain order, so that those emperors who have already reached the top do not need to rely on violence to plunder resources, their hands must have been stained with blood earlier. But no matter what, Wu Yu and his friends cannot be sure whether the scene in the crystal ball is true or false. Just as they were discussing, the bronze pendant in Wu Yu's hand suddenly reacted a little, and then the two pendants approached the crystal ball. Wu Yu watched the two attract each other, and he had no way to stop it. He watched the bronze pendant and the crystal ball merge together quickly to form a bronze ball. The surface of the bronze ball is full of ancient and mysterious lines. These lines seem to contain the power of the original bronze pendant and the crystal ball. It floats towards Wu Yu, and he can feel the surging and reverberating power in the bronze ball. Snap! The bronze ball fell directly into Wu Yu's palm, and the power in it actually pierced Wu Yu's skin, drawing out the blood in Wu Yu's body and merging with the bronze ball. As the blood in Wu Yu's body merged into the bronze ball, Wu Yu felt that he could actually control the bronze ball. It was an epic artifact. The epic artifact was refined and controlled by the blood of gods, ghosts, and demons. Now the bronze ball took the initiative to choose Wu Yu, which means that Wu Yu has this epic artifact. Is this the biggest secret of the Eternal Emperor burial? Wu Yu was shocked. He still couldn't respond to the massacre of demons by the emperors and demons in the crystal ball just now. The tragic scene kept echoing in his mind. He stared blankly at the bronze ball in his hand, feeling that he could not fully control this epic artifact for the time being. At this moment, a voice full of boundless hatred suddenly sounded in his mind. Heaven swallowing record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1638. The voice that reached Wu Yu's mind from the small bronze ball was full of endless tragedy, telling a shocking secret: this is the key to guarding the tomb of the eternal emperor's burial. Those who are destined to hold the immortal emperor's burial will hold it. Don't forget to find the real murderer and avenge the hundreds of millions of creatures in the demon world. The flesh and blood of your ancestors will pave the way for you. These tragic and heroic words greatly affected Wu Yu's heart. From this, he could probably understand what kind of existence this small bronze ball was. It turns out that the entire immortal emperor's tomb is a place to bury the immortal emperor demon of the demon god realm. This place was built artificially, and the successors were selected to give the inheritors the opportunity to avenge the billions of creatures in the entire demon god realm. Wu Yu could hardly imagine what a tragic and desolate wish this was. In Wu Yu's view, the person who built this immortal emperor's tomb was already a powerful person. He was definitely not an ordinary immortal emperor demon. However, even that kind of being could not avenge the world of demons and gods. He could only build this immortal emperor's tomb to select successors and retain the last hope of revenge. According to what the small bronze ball told Wu Yu, the entire tomb of the immortal emperor was built for revenge, and the thousands of corpses of the immortal emperor demon buried in it can all be used by those who inherit it. Now, it means that Wu Yu has obtained the inheritance of the bronze ball, an era artifact. Now Wu Yu's whole body was in shock. What a grand gesture this immortal emperor's tomb was. It was left to avenge the demon god realm. Wu Yu never thought of it at first. Emperor Zhongshan, Emperor Nine Fires, Emperor Ninghuang. One after another, the immortal emperor demons of the demon god realm were killed by the gods, ghosts, and gods from heaven and hell, and even the entire demon god realm was torn to pieces and lost the vitality it should have in the past. What kind of hatred is contained in this? Although I don't know who built this immortal emperor's tomb, and who collected so many corpses of the immortal emperor demon after that war, the bitterness in it can be felt completely. I wonder how that senior felt when he was building this eternal emperor's burial. It was really hard for Wu Yu to imagine that the entire demon and god world would be destroyed. After the war, there would probably be blood raining from the sky. A lonely figure walked alone in the blood rain, collecting the corpses of the immortal emperor demons, and finally built such a magnificent eternal emperor burial, leaving the last hope of revenge. Desolate, tragic, hate. In order to take revenge, he is actually willing to exchange the corpses of so many immortal emperor demons, which shows how strong his desire for revenge is. Wu Yu could only sigh. Even the immortal emperor demon must value his own body very much. No one would want to see his body intact after his death. But now, they are willing to use their own flesh and blood to fulfill the people who have been inherited to the immortal emperor's burial, just to train people who can avenge them. You can imagine how resentful they are. I'm afraid this can be regarded as the deepest resentment under the sky. Wu Yu guessed that he should be able to gradually control this eternal emperor's burial through the bronze ball, but he has not yet studied it in detail. He told Wu Jun, Nanshan Wanjiao, and Yezixi what the bronze ball told him. Wu Jun quickly analyzed and said, if what this bronze ball said is true, then the previous tests also contain profound meanings. Looking back now, it can be regarded as selecting a successor. Heaven is going to entrust this man with a great responsibility, and he must first work hard on his mind and body. Do you think that's right, old Wu? Nanshan Wanjiao said with a smile, it was really hard to live in that secret room for 50,000 years with only walls and candle light around. Brother Yu, are we going to avenge the emperor demons of the demon god realm next? Yezixi opened her eyes and asked curiously. Don't worry yet. Wu Yu shook his head, we don't know the truth now, so we can't act rashly. Before we figure out the truth about the demise of the demon god realm, we shouldn't act rashly, and we can't disturb the rest of the eternal emperor demons in the tombs. This is Wu Yu's attitude. Wu Jun also felt it from his words, and couldn't help but said with admiration, "This is what I value most about you. You are a person who values love and justice. If you don't decide to avenge the creatures of the demon god realm, don't waste their time. Xingxiu, if the builder of the Eternal Emperor's tomb knew your attitude, he would probably rest in peace and find such a serious successor. It's not that big of a deal. I just feel that this matter is too important. If I fail to do it, I will be sorry for the billions of creatures that have fallen in the demon god realm." Wu Yu sighed. He was also affected by the scenes and words in the bronze ball just now. The demon god realm was destroyed so tragically that he couldn't bear to ruin their hope of final revenge. Therefore, these emperor demon corpses will be kept for now. The most important thing is to find out the truth first. Also, I wonder why this little macaque appears here. Is it related to what happened back then? Wu Yu has a very close relationship with the little macaque now. The little macaque keeps jumping around next to him and chirping non-stop. Maybe this little macaque is a clue. If we can go out, we can take it with us, Wu Jun said. If you want to leave this wooden house now, the way should be in this small bronze ball. Old Wu, if you study it carefully, you will definitely be able to get out soon, Nanshan Wanjiao said to Wu Yu. Wu Yu nodded and began to think about the bronze ball. Now, the people around him who communicate with him are completely trustworthy people. Yazixi and Nanshan Wanjiao have fought side by side with him since a long time ago and have never betrayed him. The same goes for Wu Jun. He knew Wu Yu's whereabouts, but he didn't tell the ancient giant spirit god and other heavenly emperors. He knew that he would never betray Wu Yu. Now Wu Yu was holding the small bronze ball and letting the little gray macaque jump and chirp beside him, ignoring it for the time being. He focused on the small bronze ball and tried to channel his power into it. After studying it for about 3 days, he roughly felt that this small bronze door turned out to be the control core that controlled the entire tomb of the immortal emperor. Now this small bronze ball has recognized Wu Yu and actively absorbed his blood, recognizing him as its master. Therefore, as long as Wu Yu gets familiar with it, he can control the bronze ball with his mind, and then use the bronze ball to control the entire immortal emperor's tomb. Let's get out of here first. After Wu Yu finished his research, with just a thought, all the doors in the tomb guarding hall opened. Now Wu Yu is equivalent to the owner of the entire eternal emperor tomb. Any treasures in it can be taken away. The corpses of the eternal emperor demon are all treasures for Wu Yu. However, since he has decided not to move for the time being, those tombs will not be touched. Now, Wu Jun is with Wu Yu outside, while Nanshan Wanjiao, Yazixi and others continue to stay in Fusion Tower. It turns out that this is the whole picture of the Yongsheng Emperor's burial. Wu Jun followed Wu Yu and left the tomb guarding hall all the way. When he came outside, he found that the large fog in this space had disappeared and was replaced by tombs of the immortal Emperor Demon. These tombs of the immortal Emperor Demon are all protected by the Aragod array. As long as these Aragod arrays are cracked, Wu Yu can obtain all the corpses of the eternal Emperor Demon. Of course, it was impossible for him to do that. After all, he would be shouldering the responsibility of avenging hundreds of millions of creatures in the entire demon god realm. This responsibility was too heavy for him to bear rashly. Of course, not touching the corpses of the emperor demons in those tombs does not mean that he cannot get any benefits from this eternal emperor burial. With the help of the small bronze ball, which is the key that controls the entire tomb of the immortal emperor, he can understand the Aradivine formation protected outside each tomb, such as the silver storm ball around the tomb of the Wuxian emperor. There are a series of Aradivine arrays, there are no one knows how many types. Now the ability of the bronze ball allows Wu Yu to see clearly all the details in these Aragod formations, allowing him to crack them. Regarding these, Wu Yu was not polite. He began to decipher and study the massive Aragod arrays in the tomb of the eternal emperor, including the methods of practicing, arranging and cracking these Aragod arrays. Only when Wu Yu personally mastered these era god arrays could he possibly open these era god arrays, and finally be able to touch the tombs of the immortal emperor demons. The complexity of these era divine formations surpassed almost all Taigzu immortal formations that Wu Yu had come into contact with before. However, with the help of the small bronze ball, it was not difficult for him to decipher these era divine formations. Every time he masters an epical divine array, Wu Yu will be able to understand the epical divine array very well. Not only can he crack it, but he can even arrange it himself. Of course, if he wants to arrange it himself, it will not happen overnight and it will take a long time. Takes a long time to complete. With Wu Yu's current strength, it would be very difficult to set up the era divine formation. As long as he masters the method and spends enough time, he can still do it. While studying these era divine formations, Wu Yu was always accompanied by the little gray macaque. This little macaque kept walking back and forth in the tomb of the eternal emperor, wandering around, but never too far away from Wu Yu. It seems that there is a gloomy atmosphere in the burial of the eternal emperor, and even the little gray macaque, which has always been very lively, looks a little depressed. The little macaque seemed to be trying hard to remember something, but unfortunately no matter how hard it tried, it could never remember some key things. In fact, from the moment the little macaque became conscious, the only scene in its memory was the scene in the cabin. It has no idea what it is like outside. Now that Wu Yu brought it out, it was very excited at first, but later it always felt that there was some force restraining it, making it unable to escape. That is the forbidden power in its body. Not even a small bronze ball could do anything about this ban. Wu Yu tried, but couldn't help, so he could only let the little macaque play on his own. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1639. Wu Yu tried to figure out the epical divine formations in the Eternal Emperor's burial, and soon found that it was extremely difficult for him to master these epical divine formations, and it would not be completed in a short time. Now that the Eternal Emperor's burial has no secrets, it seems that I can leave here first. Wu Yu felt a little sorry. These epical divine formations were too profound. Even with the guidance of the bronze ball, it was not easy to comprehend and complete them, so he decided to put it aside for now and not rush to comprehend these epical divine formations. Where can I go after leaving here? Nanshan Wanjiao was not interested. He had not eaten meat for a long time. It was a pity that following Wu Yu, he could never go back to the days of constantly picking up girls in the heavenly palace. Of course, he did not complain about this. Nanshan Wanjiao could still make clear decisions on major issues. Let's go back to heaven first. Wu Yu called Wu Jun out, and then discussed, first, with my current ability, if there are only a few immortal emperors who come to surround and capture me, such as the giant spirit god, the 4 heavenly kings, and the Tianxin dragon emperor, even if I am not their opponent, it will be no problem for me to escape. Secondly, I can hide in the floating life tower. If nothing unexpected happens, they don't even know I exist. Wu Jun thought about it and nodded, okay, I've been away for so long, I should go back and take a look. When the time comes, I will take the floating life tower, and you can stay inside. In fact, Wu Jun also knew that a large part of Wu Yu's motivation to go back to heaven now came from Luo Bin. He hasn't seen Luo Bin for too long. Since that incident, there seems to be no trace of Luo Bin in his life. He can only recall her appearance and whereabouts in dreams and imagination. Not only do I want to see Lupin, I also want to find a way to take her away. After all, following me, her progress is much faster than her own cultivation. Wu Yu now has many inheritances, which can be passed on directly to others to help them improve their realm quickly. This method allows the people around Wu Yu to improve their realm much faster than other ordinary gods. Of course, there are two more things. The first is to ask Nangongwei clearly why she did this back then. As Wu Yu spoke, his eyes showed a puzzled look. The second is to see if there are any clues left by the heavenly court. It would be best to find a way to determine whether the demon god realm was destroyed by the heavenly court and hell together. Wu Yu was ruthless at critical moments in his cultivation, and he would never show mercy to those who should be killed, but he was kind by nature. The billions of creatures in the demon god realm were all destroyed, and the entire demon god realm void was shattered in the war. The kindness in his heart made him want to find the invaders of the year to see who was so cruel and unscrupulous. This matter may even be related to the inheritance of the great sage equaling heaven that he had obtained. What happened to the great sage equaling heaven, Marshal Tianpeng, General Wanlian, and 8 dragons, the 4 forgotten immortal emperors? There must be a big secret in this, and this secret is very likely to be related to the demise of the demon god realm. After discussing for a while, everyone decided to go back to the heavenly court first. Of course, before that, the demon god realm must leave people behind. Let's leave here first and return to the demon god realm, Wu Yu said while controlling the bronze ball in his hand, and then saw a bronze door slowly appear in the void in front of him, and then opened. Everyone left the bronze door and soon found that they had returned to the demon god realm, where they entered the immortal emperor's burial. Where the entrance is, there is the exit. And the key to open this bronze door is the bronze ball in Wu Yu's hand. This epic artifact is the control core of the entire immortal emperor's burial. It's a pity that Wu Yu can't use all its power now. In the Fusion Tower, Nanshan Wanjiao and Yezixi were resting. Only Wu Yu and Wu Jun were outside. They returned to the demon god world through the gate. At this time, they found that they were surrounded by a large circle of demon gods from the Taigzi demon realm, including the 8-day demon king, the 7-day demon king, and the 6-day demon king. There were 200 or 300 of them in total. These demon kings were originally subordinates of the 5 demon emperors. After the 5 demon emperors followed Wu Yu into the eternal life emperor's burial, they all gathered together and guarded here. They must be waiting for someone to come out from here. Whether it was Wu Yu or the 5 demon emperors, they could let them know what happened in the eternal life emperor's burial. Unexpectedly, they waited for so many years before they finally waited for the bronze gate to reappear and someone came out. However, the people who came out surprised them all. The 5 demon emperors disappeared, and it turned out that Wu Yu and Wu Jun, 2 immortals, came out. What on earth is going on? At present, hundreds of demon kings gathered together, not afraid of Wu Yu and Wu Jun at all. They surrounded Wu Yu and prepared to interrogate him. No matter what, they had to know what happened to the 5 demon emperors and what was going on in the tomb of the eternal emperor. But before they got close, Wu Yu released the eternal world tree and the eternal demon emperor from the floating life tower. The eternal demon emperor was taken into the floating life tower by Wu Yu at that time. He was always in a state of panic, fearing that he would suddenly die one day. After all, he relied on Wu Yu to save his life. Once Wu Yu died, he would be dead. He never thought that the day of his return to the light of day would come so soon, and he would return directly to the familiar demon god world. After the eternal demon emperor came out, he looked at the hundreds of familiar or unfamiliar demon kings in front of him, and tears suddenly filled his eyes. This chapter is not over yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. The 5 demon emperors stepped into the eternal emperor's burial together, but in the end only he was left alive. This really made him sigh. The other 4 demon emperors, after all, had competed or cooperated with him in the demon god world for tens of millions of years, but they died just like that. What's going on? Many demon kings were dumbfounded. If it was just Wu Yu and Wu Jun, they would probably have to join forces to use force. But when the eternal demon emperor appeared in front of them, they immediately found their backbone. Anyway, they would do whatever the Eternal Demon Emperor asked them to do. After the Eternal Demon Emperor came out, he was also respectful to Wu Yu. Although he didn't know what happened in the Eternal Emperor's burial, he knew that he alone was no match for Wu Yu and Wu Jun. Moreover, Wu Yu was able to come out of the Eternal Emperor's burial, and it is very likely that he has obtained some inheritance or treasure, and his progress is definitely great. So the Eternal Demon Emperor did not dare to disrespect Wu Yu now. He first dismissed all the other demon kings and asked them to stay away from this place. Finally, he turned around and said to Wu Yu with a wry smile, "Okay, this young master, what are your plans now?" The Eternal Demon Emperor also wanted to know how Wu Yu would deal with him. Obviously Wu Yu would not do anything to the Eternal Demon Emperor. He said directly, "I have mastered the Eternal Emperor's burial. You should know what kind of transformation my strength will have in the future." Clear. When the Eternal Demon Emperor heard this, he became very honest when he left. His eyes were full of shock in his human form. He knew what was in the Eternal Emperor's burial. If so many corpses of the Eternal Emperor Demon were controlled, wouldn't it be easy for Wu Yu to step into the realm of the Eternal Emperor Immortal? That is far beyond his level, and he can't compare at all. Unexpectedly, this kid actually got such an opportunity in the Eternal Emperor's burial. For Wu Yu's words, the Eternal Demon Emperor dared not disbelieve them. After all, Wu Yu's ability to come out of the dangerous place of the Eternal Emperor's burial had already explained a lot of problems. "Whatever you want, I will do it," the Eternal Demon Emperor immediately stated his position. Originally, Wu Yu's strength was a little higher than his, not to mention that he now controlled the Eternal Emperor's burial. It seems that Wu Yu will surpass him in the near future. The Eternal Demon Emperor thought so. So he decided to obey Wu Yu in everything. Anyway, now the other 4 demon emperors in the demon god realm are all dead, and he is the only 9 heavens demon king left in the entire demon god realm. It can be said that he dominates the demon god realm and becomes the master of the demon god realm. In this case, he only needs to obey the orders of Wu Yu alone. Moreover, he knew that Wu Yu and Wu Jun came from the heavenly court and might not stay here forever. If he was obedient, he might even be taken away from the demon god realm by Wu Yu. "This Zhuang is my friend. He wants to stay in the demon god realm. You should protect him. If you perform well in the future, I can consider taking you away from the demon god realm and going to the heavenly court." Wu Yu asked Zhuang to come out of the floating life tower, and then introduced him to the Eternal Demon Emperor. Zhuang wanted to stay in the demon god realm for the time being. After all, he was a demon god. No matter what the demon god realm looked like now, he wanted to stay there for a while. So Wu Yu found an Eternal Demon Emperor for him to protect him. In this way, he would not be in any danger in the demon god realm. "I understand." When it came to taking him away, the Eternal Demon Emperor suddenly became enthusiastic and even called himself "my little one," which showed how much he wanted to leave the demon god realm. He entered the Eternal Emperor's burial and saw so many corpses of the Eternal Emperor demons, some of which were even refined into corpse puppets. This made him feel that the demon god realm was an ominous place. If he continued to stay there, some unstoppable accidents might happen. Therefore, leaving was the best choice, and Wu Yu was his only hope. "Don't worry, from now on, young Master Zhuang will be the most important person to me. No matter who wants to touch him, they have to ask me for my consent," the Eternal Demon Emperor said solemnly. With his words, Wu Yu felt relieved. The temptation to leave the demon god realm was still very great, and Wu Yu was not afraid that he would not obey. "Finally, there is this area, it is best to close it off and don't let other demon kings come and mess around." Wu Yu looked around and tried to activate the bronze ball. Soon he could confirm that he could make the entrance to the Eternal Emperor's burial appear or disappear with the help of the bronze ball, and everything moved with his thoughts. However, the entrance to the Eternal Emperor's burial is here, and the bronze ball is just a key to open it. If you want to return to the Eternal Emperor's burial, you have to come to this location in the demon god realm. Therefore, Wu Yu did not want other demon kings to come and mess around, as it would be bad if something happened. In response, the Eternal Demon Emperor naturally agreed immediately. Then, the Eternal World Tree left first. He needed to sort out the current demon god world and ensure his sole dominance. As for Wu Yu and the others, of course, they planned to return to the Heavenly Palace first. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1640. After saying goodbye to Zhuiying for the last time, Wu Jun took the Fusion Tower and returned from the demon god realm to the Heavenly Palace. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. In the Fusion Tower, Wu Yu, Nanshan Wanjiao, and Yezixi were all inside. If they returned to the Heavenly Palace, they would definitely not be able to come out of the Fusion Tower at ordinary times, otherwise once they were discovered, they would be hunted down by the Eternal Emperor Immortals of the entire Heavenly Palace, and even Wu Jun and his group would be implicated. Let's go back to the Immortal Dragon Emperor realm first. Wu Jun took them all the way back to the Immortal Dragon Emperor realm of the Heavenly Palace, and then went to the place where the Dragon King Bai Yin and the Dragon King Bai Qin were, and let Wu Yu meet them first. As for Wu Jun, he went to see the Dragon King Tianxin before, and split into two groups with Wu Yu to check on the situation of Luo Bin. Immortal Dragon Emperor Realm. Returning to this place again, Wu Yu was filled with emotion. Once upon a time, he sneaked in when he first came here, and tried every possible way to see Luo Bin. Once upon a time, he was recognized by Bai Yin Dragon King and Bai Qin Dragon King, and was able to come here openly to meet Luo Bin. But now, he can only sneak in again, and he can't even see Luo Bin when he sneaks in. The world has changed a lot, and this is the case. Coming out of the Fusion Tower, he met Bai Yin Dragon King and Bai Qin Dragon King again. When the two seniors saw Wu Yu, they were immediately very surprised. We heard that you were in the demon god world before, not only were you fine but you were making rapid progress, so we were relieved. Now it seems that you are in better condition than we imagined, Bai Yin Dragon King said to Wu Yu with an excited face. As for who heard the news, it was of course Wu Jun. Except Wu Jun, no one in the heaven knew the whereabouts of Wu Yu. Of course, now Bai Yin Dragon King and Bai Qin Dragon King also know that they are the same as Wu Jun, people Wu Yu can absolutely trust, so it doesn't matter if he tells them. Over the years, Wu Yu and them have been like family. Before Wu Yu left the Immortal Dragon realm, Bai Yin Dragon King and Bai Qin Dragon King were worried, not to mention how heavy it was. It was not until they saw Wu Yu in person that they were completely relieved. It is said that you can now rival the Nine Heavens Immortal King, which is more than us. You are worthy of being the boy I like. Your talent is amazing, haha. After being relieved, they sighed. Both Bai Yin Dragon King and Bai Qin Dragon King have lived much longer than Wu Yu, but now, they are no longer Wu Yu's opponents in terms of combat power. This made them sigh a lot. Bai Qin Dragon King rolled his eyes at her husband. What do you mean by liking someone? It's obviously the one that our concubine likes. Yes, yes, yes. Bai Yin Dragon King was happy now and didn't care too much. If it were any other time, he would definitely have a good argument with Bai Qin Dragon King, saying that it was his own vision, otherwise why did he like you back then? Wu Yu was also very happy to see Bai Yin Dragon King and Bai Qin Dragon King again. At least he could see that the two of them were not embarrassed in the Immortal Dragon Emperor realm. It's true that although the Zhuling Shen and the four heavenly kings are of noble status, they can't control the Immortal Dragon Emperor realm. At most, Tian Xin Dragon Emperor and others have some prejudices against Bai Yin Dragon King and his wife, but it doesn't affect too many things. It's just that it's a bit embarrassing. In the past, Bai Yin Dragon King was particularly concerned about face, but now, as long as Wu Yu and Luo Bin are safe, he doesn't care about face. After all, as long as Wu Yu is alive, he will rise sooner or later with his talent, and he will have as much face as he wants. 3 days later, Wu Jun finally returned from Tianxin Dragon Emperor and brought Wu Yu the news of Luo Bin. They met secretly at Qinyan Peak in the Immortal Realm. No one knew that Wu Yu, who had stirred up the Taixu Immortal Road and made many immortal emperors frantically look for news, dared to return to this place again. Luo Bin is now under house arrest in a place called Holy Dragon Domain. This is the sacred place of the Shenlong clan. Even I can't go in now. The news brought back by Wu Jun made Wu Yu frown. What about the defense of the Holy Dragon Domain? Is it possible to sneak in? Wu Yu asked. Wu Jun shook his head. The Holy Dragon Domain is extremely sacred and has a long history. It is guarded by the eternal Holy Dragon Tribulation Immortal Formation. Not to mention you and me, even if you are at the level of the Eternal Emperor Immortal, there is no way to sneak in. That's troublesome. Is there any way? Wu Yu is a little anxious now. The Holy Dragon Domain is so heavily guarded. Luo Bin is under house arrest in it, and Tianxin Dragon Emperor is secretly monitoring her. In this case, it is extremely difficult for him to take Luo Bin away, or even impossible. There is still a glimmer of hope. Wu Jun said solemnly at this time, as long as I can break through to the realm of the Eternal Emperor Immortal, I will be qualified to enter the Holy Dragon Domain. At that time, I may be able to secretly take you in. Yes, only the 9 Dragon Emperors and the Dragon Lord can enter the Holy Dragon Domain, but how difficult is it to enter the realm of the Eternal Emperor Immortal? Countless dragons and immortal kings are stuck at this step and cannot make any progress in this life. Bai Yin Dragon King sighed, looking a little hopeless. Wu Yu's eyes lit up as he understood what Wu Jun meant. You mean, you've made some breakthroughs recently, and maybe you have a chance to become an immortal emperor. Yes, but I just have a little epiphany, not too sure, just can try it. Wu Jun smiled and nodded. Great, no matter what, we must give it a try. Wu Yu laughed out loud. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. This is the last and only way. If Wu Jun cannot successfully break through to the Eternal Emperor Immortal and become the Dragon Lord, then he will not be able to step into the Holy Dragon Domain, let alone bring Luo Bin out of the Holy Dragon Domain. At this time, Bai Yin Dragon King and Bai Qin Dragon King were shocked. They knew that Wu Jun was a man of his word. Since he said now that it is possible to break through to the Eternal Emperor Immortal, it is really possible. Could it be that Wu Jun has made such great progress during the time he followed Wu Yu to the Demon God realm? Bai Yin Dragon King and Bai Qin Dragon King looked at each other and saw surprise in each other's eyes. They knew their own weight, and it was too early to step into the Eternal Emperor Immortal. But Wu Jun is different. He is already on the verge of becoming an immortal emperor. As long as he gets a certain breakthrough and enlightenment, the possibility of taking this step is still quite high. Don't have too much expectation. I can only say that I will give it a try. After all, this is the most important step for all immortals and dragons. From ancient times to the present, I don't know how many immortals have fallen in this step. Wu Jun's words are still relatively conservative. But since he has said this, Wu Yu must understand what he means. Besides, this is the only way. No matter whether it can succeed or not, he must try. Then you go to retreat first, don't worry about me, Wu Yu said. Although he is in danger in the Immortal Dragon Emperor realm, as long as he hides in the floating life tower, there will be no accidents anyway. So he doesn't worry about himself. No matter how long Wu Jun takes to retreat, he must wait. Wu Yu really misses Luo Bin too much. In the current situation, no matter how difficult it is, he must work hard to see Luo Bin, not to mention just waiting for Wu Jun. Moreover, during the waiting process, he could also try to study and comprehend some things about the epical divine array recorded in the bronze ball. These things could not be completed overnight. Even any epical divine array might not be successfully comprehended by him after spending tens of thousands of years. He was destined to spend time on this, so waiting was not a waste of time. Next, Wu Jun began to retreat in the immortal spirit realm. The White Qin Dragon King and the White Yin Dragon King usually lived as usual. Sometimes they communicated with Wu Yu at Qin Yin Peak, but in order to prevent being exposed, Wu Yu rarely came out. He would only come out of the floating life tower when there was more important news. During this process, the news that Wu Jun retreated and tried to break through the Immortal Emperor finally spread. You should know that there has been no new Immortal Emperor for a long time in the entire Immortal Dragon realm, so Wu Jun's news was only spread in a small range at the beginning, but it soon spread outside, and even the dragons of the entire Immortal Dragon realm began to pay attention to the situation here. The first one to come to investigate the situation was the Tianxin Dragon Emperor. Because of Luo Bin, the other three ancient immortal dragons in the Immortal Dragon Emperor realm, namely Wu Jun, Bai Yin Dragon King and Bai Qin Dragon King, have all received the attention of the Dragon Emperor. The news that Wu Jun was in seclusion and trying to break through soon reached the ears of Tianxin Dragon Emperor. On this day, Tianxin Dragon Emperor brought Tianyi Dragon King, Tianying Dragon King and Tianyu Dragon King to the immortal spirit realm. Now that Wu Jun is in seclusion and Tianxin Dragon Emperor has come to the immortal spirit realm, Bai Yin Dragon King and Bai Qin will definitely show up. At this time, Wu Yu hid in the fusion tower carried by Bai Yin Dragon King, secretly observing the situation outside. After not seeing each other for many years, Tianyi Dragon King and Tianying Dragon King still looked like a villain with a smug smile on their faces. Greetings, Lord Dragon Emperor. Bai Yin Dragon King and Bai Qin Dragon King naturally had to salute when they saw Tianxin Dragon Emperor. The other party was of noble status, and the Shenlong clan still attached great importance to etiquette. Tianxin Dragon Emperor still looked calm and composed. As a Dragon Emperor, he could not show dissatisfaction with Wu Jun and his people. He came here to check the situation and make some preparations. So he asked, "It is said that Wu Jun is confident that he can break through to become an immortal emperor this time. I wonder how confident he is." Wu Jun did not say much about this matter before he went into seclusion. Bai Yin Dragon King could only say, "We don't know much about it either. But no one can be confident about breaking through to become an immortal emperor, right? We can only say that we should give it a try." On the one hand, Bai Yin Dragon King did not know Wu Jun's specific situation. On the other hand, he could not say anything now, lest Wu Jun failed to break through and let others laugh at him. He used to want to save face, but now, he did not want to be too prominent and let others pay too much attention to him. After all, he still had a Wu Yu hanging on him. Once he was noticed, the situation would be bad. Upon hearing this, Tianxin Dragon Emperor nodded calmly, "Yes, as long as there is hope, we must give it a try. I hope that my Tianxin clan can have one more Emperor Immortal this time." He really meant what he said. If Wu Jun becomes an Emperor Immortal, it will be very good for him, and the status of the Tianxin clan in the Fairy Dragon Emperor world will be more important. But there was a trace of regret in his expression. How great would it be if his children could break through to the Emperor Immortal?